In the parish of Gweedore, along the northwestern coast of Donegal, the skirl of the Scottish bagpipes is an authentic sound. This crop of Gweedore youngsters may move to more modern rhythms, but their parents and grandparents trooped the emigrant trail to Scotland. If the district looks prosperous now, there's not a house or institution that hasn't benefited by pounds hard-earned in the likes of Glasgow, Motherwell and Coatbridge. Gweedore people often felt closer to the goings-on in Sauchiehall Street and Argyll Street than to happenings in Dublin's main thoroughfare. Nowadays, industries provide more work locally, yet the bonds with Scotland remain strong and true. The late Rua Gallagher was a Donegal and Ulster Gaelic football hero who spent 20 years drilling and mining in Scotland. His son, Pádraig, now runs the family public house and hotel. Gaelic is the local tongue, and ironically, alongside the photographs of Rua in his glory days are images of other legends, MacNeill, Crerand, Dalglish, revered figures in the homes of Donegal, particularly among the people of Gweedore, in what was once a foreign code, soccer football. Maire Rua Gallagher was 40 years a clippy on the Glasgow trams and learned how to deal with any Rangers supporters who became too cheeky.
So we found a Kurishari Gomor, Scartily, so the canal the abuse they had is will she cracker and Narshan, Chashta and Keru. Anish, you might half a just latte, a switch she arish, a gastompashi, a rash, a gasopshin farshan massa Geru.
Big-hearted Moira. The jersey of a native son, Packy Bonner, goalkeeper of Glasgow Celtic, is proudly displayed above the bar, alongside one of Pat Crerand's Scottish caps, a Celtic jersey belonging to Jim Brogan, who married a Gweedore girl. Not just tokens or souvenirs, but the very stuff of dreams and dreamers. It's their story we'd like to tell.
Good afternoon from Radio.
Well, another big weekend looming in Scottish football, and all eyes focused again on the team of the season to date, Celtic.
It's a Friday morning in March. The sports bulletins of Radio Clyde have a keen audience in the ports of Donegal. Fishermen work silently in earshot of their car radios. 6'2" Packy Bonner could be among them, for he well knows how to hunt the mackerel and salmon. But as a 17-year-old, he was spotted playing football by Celtic and taken from soccer leagues in West Donegal to Scotland's Premier Division. Packy is every inch the successful man. A large house at Newton Mearns in Glasgow's exclusive suburbs, 2 cars in the driveway, happily married with a young son, and his international reputation as a goalkeeper growing. Each development in his career is monitored with pride by kinsmen in Donegal. They're excited by the prospect of him winning a league and cup double with Celtic during this, the club's centenary year.
Dundee United and on the very same Parkhead pitch. That was almost 5 months ago, October the 24th. But now Celtic going for 27 games unbeaten, and Pat Bonner a big factor, obviously, in this one. He's had a tremendous season for Celtic and looking forward to the European Championships in West Germany in the summer. The Celtic success all the more remarkable because they did lose 4 top players at the start of the season, but it's now shaping as a special centenary year.
Jim Barker from Rathmullan in County Donegal is another man with the match against Dundee United on his mind. He's about to set off for Glasgow. He travels over to a dozen Celtic matches each year. Katrina, one of his 5 children, is sent off in search of the passengers. The 7-year-old is well acquainted with the ritual. She knows the fellow travellers will be building up energy reserves in the pub.
Daddy said to have to hurry on over.
Right.
Jim owns a garage in the village. He was 13 when he travelled alone from Donegal to his first match in Glasgow. He calls his home Parkhead. What else? Further west in Donegal, Maire Rua Gallagher also prepares for a weekend visit to Glasgow. Almost as a priest would select a prayer shawl, she picks her garb of green and white from a huge collection and gets a taxi for the bus at Annagry. During 30 years in Glasgow, she grew to love the city and its people. She's a little bit nervous about making the trip. She will share the journey with Eoin Sharkey, another emigrant. He returned home in 1967 to build his dream home on top of a Donegal mountain, with nature on a grand scale below. A little man who earned his place in the big world, he crisscrossed the Scottish Highlands and Islands for 40 years, working on massive industrial schemes, and was one of the highest paid workers in that no-nonsense world. The club he naturally identified with was Glasgow Celtic. Humble roots with big ambition. Ready for the road too is Margaret Ward, one of Owen's neighbours. She moved to Scotland when she was 13, but now lives with her parents, her husband and young son, near the shore at Kincasla. Their home overlooks the pitch of local junior soccer team Gweedore Rovers, where Packy Bonner once kept goal, learning the tricks of his trade. This is the view from the Rangers' end. Jim Barker and his crew have their first pit stop at a restaurant in Letterkenny. It's the pickup point for their last passenger, Tommy McNaught, who works at the local post office. They have a lot in common because Tommy is another football fanatic, but he views the game from a different angle. He supports Glasgow Rangers.
Well, not worth chatting about at this stage, anyway. I'm glad to hear you saying. You wearing them socks, are you? No, I am. Well, see as you bought them for me, I had to wear them. Couldn't help us. Listen, boys, I won the sports shop, see Duncan Doherty here.
Jim takes his leave of the banter to go and find a senior statesman from his own tribe. In McFadden's sports shop, Duncan Doherty is adding one more item to his collection. Duncan is a Scot who agreed to settle in Letterkenny and marry a Donegal girl. A strict teetotaler. According to himself, he's been consumed by Celtic since 1902, the year of his birth. Jim is commissioned to get the players' signatures on the centenary year calendar.
What badge is that, Duncan?
Celtic supporter badge. That's the original.
That's the original?
Aye.
Well, there's the latest one there. That's the latest badge. I'll swap that, Duncan.
Not at all. No.
You won't swap it?
Never.
Well, I'll bring you back one of those when I'm coming back. Okay?
Aye.
Grand.
The priest asked me if I was doing away with one of them, take one down, which one would it be? The Pioneer or the Celtic?
Which?
Aye, the Pioneer.
Pioneer one?
The weekend run of shoppers and football supporters to Glasgow is a popular one. The path ahead is well worn. In the first half of the last century, it was the migrant workers who travelled over for the summer and harvest. The famine of the 1840s changed the pattern. Migrants became immigrants. Tens of thousands off to Taddyhope or Scrub or Mine. Often they were used as a source of cheap labour and were resented, treated as scabs by fellow Scottish workers. Marginalised, they herded together in the ghettos of Glasgow's East End. But for all the troubles, Scotland became synonymous with a chance to struggle, and maybe even succeed.
The first time I made the journey, I went by train from Kincastle Road Station to Derry. You got from Buttonport to Derry at that time, 4 and 6 on the train. That's only 22.5 pence in present day money. And if you met the right man at the boat, you could over for half fare. So you arrived in Glasgow for less than 50 pence.
When I was 13, we went away on the 8th of December. I always remember the 8th of December was a holiday, 1962. And nighttime sailing at that time, all night on the boat, and it was a big adventure for us. We had great crack and got off on the boat in the morning into the Brumallow and couldn't believe the size of the buses and the trains went over the bridge. We were pure amazed at it all, you know.
First time I made the journey was in 1947, and I was only 15 years of age. And that time there was no work at all to be had, so there was no other place for us but to make for Scotland. So there was men coming around here looking for kids, as I call them, to work at the potato picking. And that's how you got away at that age. See, so I made up my mind that I was going over to earn money because we were very poor at home and we needed the money.
Jim Barker's journey takes him over the border and past the British Army checkpoint on the outskirts of Derry. The city is divided by a river and political loyalties, but united in the success of the local soccer team, Derry City, back in senior football after a gap of 13 years. Ironically, they now play in the Southern League. The conversation is ceaseless, the point scoring too. Tommy's loyalties lie with Linfield, who play in the Northern League.
They're playing well at the moment. Probably won the cup now. You Linfield fans wouldn't be happy to see that.
Well, they won the cup here because Linfield's not in it, you see. They wouldn't want it if Linfield's in it, or the league either.
You think not?
Only team in the North of Ireland, Linfield. Only team in Ireland, that's not it.
Every other team's banned out, sure. You're bound to be good.
When you have the ability,
As Jim drives along the lower deck of the Craigavon Bridge, he sees a British Army checkpoint ahead.
We're very nice to these boys now. These are the security forces of the country. They're guarding you and they're guarding me. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't
have the waving us on or the stabbing us, you know.
Gentlemen. Pure gentlemen, all gentlemen.
There. Couldn't tell you, Tommy, I don't see their faces.
Belfast Celtic are in Maire Rua's thoughts at a roundabout outside the city, where a supermarket now stands on the site of the old pitch.
Celtic Park meant an awful lot to me because that's where Charlie Tully went to play for Glasgow Celtic, and that was the best buy that Glasgow Celtic ever had, was Charlie Tully, and that's how the park means so much to me, because that's where he started playing and that's where he played his first games, and he was a very good player.
Charlie starred in the first Celtic team she saw. Not a very successful side, but one which remains in her memory.
My favourite team was Bonner, Honey and Meehan, Evans, Steen and Peacock, Higgins, Fairney, Palin, Tully and Morgan.
Hello, Nuala. We've a slight problem there. Danny.
At the ferry port of Larne, Jim Barker is forced to alter his plans. One of his passengers is over-fortified for the journey, and it's thought prudent to leave him behind in a local hospital.
No, there's a delay. The ship can't get into port here with the storms.
Before boarding, Jim must remove his Celtic colours in accordance with strict regulations enforced by the ferry authorities.
Well, there's one thing sure, Tommy. What's that? I've had to go off my scarf. Should have got them damn socks. Ah, but I've come prepared. Well, I hope so. That's grand. I'm glad to see that there.
Like most Donegal men, they keep a close eye on their money and are well versed in the cost of travel.
After last weekend, I mean, it's about £40 for diesel. How about that? And about £50 for the fare on the boat for the car. Well, that's if you're getting away with it's about £12 a head after that then.
Robert Hunter and Paul Murphy can afford to fly from Dublin and see Celtic 5 times a year. Robbie was born and reared in Maryhill, Glasgow, but settled at Mulholland outside Dublin 9 years ago with his Irish wife. He and Paul are officials of a Celtic supporters club. They've been entrusted to carry out a very special mission. Irrespective of the importance of the journey, there was only one journey in Robbie's life.
Fantastic time in that game. I mean, for me, leaving Glasgow, hitchhiking all the way over to Portugal, you know, I was some feet, and I was only 19 at the time. All the trouble I had getting over there, but to see the game itself was actually brilliant, especially us winning the match.
Robbie loves to tell friends and strangers the detailed story of his epic pilgrimage to Lisbon in 1967, where Celtic won the European Cup.
Eventually we split up because we weren't getting the through France and so on, and I went on my own. I actually got lost in Paris. I was for a full day looking for places to stay in Paris. I stood in the doorway of the railway station. I fell asleep for about 3 hours. And then when they opened up the station, that was the next morning. And I then got a train from France right through to Portugal.
Just over an hour later, the pair have landed in Glasgow, and they've no time to lose. On dry land, they must track down Celtic chairman Jack McGinn to try and line him up for the Supporters Club 21st anniversary dinner. But never mind the mission, Robbie had only one priority: to get to Lisbon and back.
Half-time, one of the lads, and whether it be luck or whatever, who knows, one of the lads from that club who'd let me down had come over and he saw me wearing a certain t-shirt and decided that, well, that's me, Robbie, and he came down and he told me, come on, I'll get you a lift home, back to Glasgow. And I got a lift back. I suppose, in the final analysis, you know, being there to me was just enough.
At last, Paul gets a word in. He's not too confident of the task ahead.
I don't think he's going to come over.
Ah, he'll be there, don't worry.
And so, to paradise, where a new facade has just been completed on the Parkhead headquarters to mark the club's centenary celebrations. This is it, the Dream Factory. But behind the facade, reality is close by. Inside the huge, empty stadium, his career fading, Pierce O'Leary struggles against injury to remain part of the Celtic family. Robbie and Paul have found their man, Jack McGinn. They've seen the Celtic trophy room many times before, but each visit brings new joy. Batches of old photographs discovered during the refurbishment work are awaiting a home in the new building. Near the entrance, what amounts to a shrine is built to John Thompson, the keeper who died while playing football for Celtic in September 1931. Before 80,000 supporters at Ibrox Park, he was fatally injured when he dived at the feet of Rangers centre-forward Sam English. Thompson, a devout Protestant, was aged 23. One tribute claimed him a great player who came to the game as a boy and left it still a boy. Robbie is doing his best to woo the chairman and proudly tells of the supporters club's achievements. McGinn was the first editor of the official Celtic magazine, The View, and is preoccupied with projecting the club's profile, particularly so in its centenary year. He shares a Celtic chip about media coverage.
What you're really saying is that RTE don't appreciate good football. They don't.
Well, yeah, one might say that, one might say that, yeah.
Well, I think it's up to you guys and all the rest of the people in the Dublin. Make noises about it. Get onto the television, people, and get onto the press. And tell, if they don't know about Celtic, they should know about Celtic.
Only the best for Celtic fans, Jack. The club is consistent in that view. The top stars, as well as the young reserves, as a matter of routine, autograph footballs for distribution to charities. It's a homely club where supporters are made feel welcome, a key in the door, cup of tea in the hand approach. Jim Barker is on first-name terms with Hugh Clark in the club shop and knows that requests on behalf of old Duncan back in Letterkenny will be treated with respect.
There you go, that's the new centenary badge. And I have two calendars there, Hugh. Would you get the players to autograph them for me tomorrow?
No problem.
Could you arrange that?
Yeah, if you bring them in to me, I'll get them done for you.
You go out and
tomorrow.
get them, Eddie. Thanks.
Good man.
What's that badge now, Hugh?
£1.
Meanwhile, Margaret Ward and Maire Rua Gallagher passed the Saturday morning visiting old haunts in the Gorbals. In years gone by, thousands of Irish families lived here. An empty space here, a closed-down building there. For all the recent efforts of Glasgow's Labour Council to refurbish the stone monuments from an industrial past, the overwhelming images of decay. Margaret perks up at the sight of her old school, St. Mary's.
We started off at school, at Our Lady in St. Margaret's School, and massive big school. And we had great fun there, really enjoyed school, had lovely memories of school days there.
There was nobody rich, but everybody was what you call comfortable. Everybody was working then, and everybody was getting a wage in at the weekend. And the likes of the Gorbals now, I thought they were very rich, you know, I thought they were quite comfortable. They all had beautiful homes and everything there.
One isolated vision of beauty in the Gorbals, not requiring restoration, 40 years on. Packy Bonner is acutely aware of his roots and what he means to his people. It may be match day, but there's a bus from home in town, and he's anxious to meet old neighbours. It's a chance to trade stories.
I haven't seen your mum in a while. How's she doing?
No, she's doing very well. I think I spoke to her on the phone. I haven't seen her myself for a while, you know.
She was supposed to be coming over.
She's hoping to come over in the near future, you know. My sister's over the moment, and you would never know, she may bring her back, you know.
Gweedore's booming, you know. It's doing well.
If Glasgow's a divided city, there's inter-parish rivalry in West Donegal too. Packy is a Ross's man, different from Gweedore.
Want to play a strip again, Tommy?
What's one of that?
Get that adrenaline flowing.
Paul Coulter?
No, it's a tape reporter at the Ibrox last Sunday. Celtic 1-2-1. Leave it on.
Jim and Tommy are about to part company. They're heading for the station where Tommy will get a train to the Rangers away match. Friends united by differences. The one-upmanship continues. Jim is on the high ground because Celtic won an old, firm match the previous week. Tommy takes his chance as they pass Ibrox Park.
Ibrox, best stadium in, probably the best stadium in Britain. Like, I mean, we compared to that place of yours, like, I mean, we're not afraid to spend a few pounds. We spend a few pounds on players, spend a few pounds in the stadium. Like, well, I have very happy memories of Ibrox. No later than last Sunday, when they beat us 2-1. Man, you were feeling sick. Oh, I was sick. Well, like, cast the mind back to a year ago. You were pretty sick whenever Packy Bonner dropped the two. I think it's approximately 90 kids.
I was very, very sick that day, Tommy.
But Packy he hasn't got it. He can be good or bad. Packy hasn't dropped many since that. I was calling him last Sunday, impeccable Packy.
A low-known Sharkey remembers how the streets of Glasgow were a welcome sight during his labouring days. Saturdays meant the few morning drinks and the walk to Parkhead.
Well, I thought the buildings were huge, you know, compared to the cottages in Donegal at that time. I suppose the people in general on the streets, they looked strange, you know, there were a lot of coloured people mixed into them. I never saw coloured people in my life before. I used to go to the barrows occasionally, maybe on a Sunday or that. In fact, at weekends, the place was besieged with bargain hunters. There was a lot of Irish stalls there at that time. Some of them would ask you just if they knew you were Irish, they'd ask you where you came from, and they would probably tell you that they themselves or their father or grandfathers came from Ireland before that.
Passing through Glasgow Green, his thoughts drift back 50 years to 1937.
The first Celtic team that I saw was Kenway, Hogan, Morrison, Eatons, Lyons and Patterson, Delaney, Buchan, McGrory, Crum and Murphy.
Jungle Gate slides over here.
Half an hour before kick-off and the crowds file into Celtic Park. Back in 1891, the site was a disused brickfield with a 40-foot quarry in the centre. Voluntary labour helped to turn it into a stadium in a matter of months. On view, the complex nature of Scottish football. 250 police officers patrol when Celtic and Rangers play. The amount is doubled when they meet. Yet violence at Parkhead is a rare occurrence. Jim Barker and thousands like him head for a section of the stadium known as the Jungle. Yet grandfather, father and son can feel at home here, safe among friends. No doubt the miracle of the single rotation is being perfected by many of the Scots family. Nothing is simple. Under the tricolour, the fans pledge their lives to Ireland, but how many of them are fully aware of the historical incidents they sing about? Some will argue till they are green in the face that the flag above them is the original given to the club by Eoin de Valera. A tricolour was hoisted over the grounds in 1892 and one has flown there during every game since. In the complex, often contradictory web where fiction is sometimes more important than fact, the symbolism of the flag is vital.
Well, it means everything. Great sense of pride there, you see it flying there.
I used to be 10 feet tall when I'd gone to Parkhead and I seen that flag. That flag meant something to me, and I suppose to every Celtic supporter as well as me.
Celtic flew the tricolour and the Scottish Football Association ordered them to take it down. There was nothing in the rules to say that Celtic couldn't fly it because they fly every other flag.
Significant section of the Celtic following, the flag is a symbol of nationhood. They're regarded as part of their heritage and a great source of pride when you go to Parkhead to a match to see it flying over the stand.
Celtic spirit must stem from the Irishness of the club. The fact that the tricolour is flying over the stadium.
When Celtic won the European Cup in Lisbon in 1967, on that occasion there were so many Irish flags in the terraces that some continental commentators were under the impression that it was an Irish team that was involved.
Most of the Celtic fans, they're all Irish descent. If you're at a match, no matter what match I go to, who I'm talking to, their grandmother was Irish, their great-grandfather was Irish. They seem very proud of the fact.
I think the tradition of the club always been second best. Probably relates to the Irish-English thing, where Irish have always felt under the thumb of the English, and I think Celtic have always felt second best citizens against Rangers now.
Despite the encouragement from the terraces, Celtic can only draw 0-0 with Dundee United. From the press box, the word is relayed to Scotland and beyond that Celtic's title is still on course, but not yet captured. The manufacturers of green and white shirts must love Glasgow Celtic. In the early days, many of the Celtic supporters clubs were run under the auspices of the Legion of the Cross, a temperance organisation. The link didn't endear them to some of Celtic's first directors, many of whom were publicans. In the middle of the party, let's take a check on our friend Robbie Hunter and see what he's on about.
I mean, I used to say, well, you're lucky, but I remember being in the chapel of the Mass, and the tears was coming down my face. I was praying. I was laying and everything, the rosary beads out, because it was so interesting to get there. As soon as I got there, I wanted to get home. I'd never been out of Glasgow in my life. I'd gone to Ireland and stayed with my brothers. I wanted to get there much, but I wanted to go home to my mammy. You know?
Comedian Big Bill Gilfinnan is on his feet. His routine must include the one about the mother-in-law and Rangers, the dog and Rangers, the wife and Rangers, and the #1 target for abuse, Rangers manager, Graham Souness.
He's a dirty orange allegedly.
The antagonism towards Rangers goes deeper than straightforward personal abuse. Celtic don't hide their Catholic and Irish roots. The club was founded by a County Sligo-born Maris brother, Andrew Kearns. His aims were to help raise funds for local East End Catholic charities and to create a symbol of pride and a source of identity for the Catholic Irish. But Celtic have never pursued sectarian policies. The less said about Rangers and sectarianism, the better. But in 115 years, the club has not managed to find a Roman Catholic fit to appear in its first team. The relationship between Celtic and Rangers is many things, including a business called the Old Firm, based on bigotry.
Mick goes with his wife and said, she got all her teeth out. As his house and moved, she's still in bed.
Big Bill is let complete his set and then the conversation resumes. Robbie has finally run out of steam and it's Margaret's turn to talk. And surprise, surprise, she was also in Lisbon.
The morning of the game, we noticed that we were heading for Madrid instead of Lisbon. And we got to Madrid and got to the airport, and there was only 12 seats on a flight that was going to New York and stopping in Lisbon. So we had to throw all our passports in, and it took 12. Luckily enough, mine was one of them. My brother and my friends was with us. And we got the flight to Lisbon about 4:20, and the game started 5:30. And I got a taxi from the airport straight out to the stadium, suitcases and all, luggage with us into the match.
As you'd expect in a club centenary year, there's no shortage of memories, mostly happy ones. In a different corner, Jim Barker and Paul Murphy have struck up a conversation with some locals. There's a competitive edge to the chat. The Irish contingent are suggesting they're the less fortunate but more dedicated Celtic supporters.
All the more expensive.
Yeah, but you're getting every game.
We're getting every
We're
game.
getting maybe 6-7 games a season.
That's
it's
right.
costing us £100–120 to fly. The north is like a time bomb. It can go off for 2 weeks and it can be crazy for 2 weeks and nothing might happen for a month then. Yeah.
Full-grown adults locked in debate about their obsession. A new act takes to the stage behind. Michael Jackson, Madonna, even the Pope would find it hard to compete with 500 Celtic historians in full flight. They're going to keep on talking. Ironically, it's a song about immigration. Sunday morning, coming down. After attending Mass in Glasgow, the passengers on McGinley's bus head towards the ferry boat at Stranraer. Most are catching up on lost sleep, but Maire Rua Gallagher and Margaret Ward carry out a post-mortem on their adventure.
It's not the same as it used to be. The crowds all changed and the people's all away and all the crack. I enjoyed the crack last night, but I don't think I would like to stay it all the time now.
So it's going back for a holiday?
Yeah, it's not nice to go for a holiday, but all the places that we used to meet, they're all gone. And
they're all haunting
grounds? Oh, yeah, exactly. They're nearly all gone. And even out up at Parkhead, now some of the last game, all the players used to stand outside and we used to get talking to them all through the night. It's not like that anymore. They just go out and away fast into cars. They hardly talk to you or anything now. Everything has changed. That's also about it. Maybe we have changed too.
3 days later, to the unmistakable ooh of a Dublin crooner, the double birthday celebrations are underway. The guest of honour isn't Jack McGinn, but the Celtic manager, Billy McNeill, a Lisbon lion. Mission accomplished by Robbie and Paul, a most acceptable substitute, and McNeill knows he's among his people.
It's always been known that we've always had a close association with the supporters. But like every other big family, we tend to excite you at times, we tend to disappoint you other times, we tend to frustrate you, we tend to aggravate you, we tend to delight you. all mixed up in the whole jumble, and that's what makes the whole thing that bit more exciting. But, you know, as I said to you earlier on, we hope that this year is one of the ones when everything's going to be exciting and we're all going to enjoy ourselves with a tremendous finale to the season.
At the top table, Celtic etiquette is observed. Mrs. Liz McNeill sits alongside the man with the collar. Not the tabloid image of footballers, but a convivial gathering of true friends. To the fans, McNeill is the perfect Celtic representative. Articulate, clean-cut, a good mixer. From 1958 to 75, he played 485 times for Celtic, his only club. He was capped 29 times for Scotland. He was captain on and off the field and given the apt nickname Caesar. The group must impress him. In the best Celtic traditions, they donate funds to a Catholic charity, Baldoyle Orthopaedic Hospital. One big, happy, active family. Well, almost. In the best of Irish traditions, they are party to a split, considering themselves superior to a breakaway Celtic supporters club down the road. Away from his friends, Robbie Hunter struggles to come to terms with life in what for him remains an alien land. At home in Scotland, he spent 5 years as a metal polisher with Rolls-Royce, where his passion for soccer was shared. It's not the same on a Dublin factory floor where the Glasgow ways aren't fully understood and Celtic fervour can be a lonely burden. But what has Robbie done? Within weeks of moving to his new home, he built a sanctuary at the bottom of the garden, wall-to-wall, green and white, a ghetto blaster tuned to Radio Scotland, a retreat to keep in touch with his soul.
When we came to Ireland, she said, no photographs in the bedrooms, I've had enough. So I said, okay, I'll build a shed. And the shed will never go. I'll live in the shed, I'll die around that shed. That stays, you know, it is a shrine. It's for all my memorabilia, I don't need to clutter the house up.
We never missed a Saturday when we lived over there, over at Parkhead, and away games and that. And when we moved over here then, it was his ambition to have a place where he could have sit and listen to all his football matches.
Businessman Paul Murphy says his obsession began in boyhood and a meeting with Sean Fallon, an Irish Celt.
The fact that my father was involved with St. Patrick's Athletic and an ex-Celtic man was then came to be player manager, John Coleraine. My father was very, very pally with John Coleraine. And that, in fact, helped because I remember going to see Celtic in the European Cup in Parkhead, taking a few days off school, flying over with John Coleraine to see them play St. Etienne, and then going up to Sean Fallon's house in Glasgow to collect tickets. And Fallon actually gave me the tie that he was wearing, the Celtic tie, and I still have it. It's the European Cup winner's tie. I still have that at home, and one thing I do treasure.
Hello, Robert.
Gary, you're too far in front of you!
Once a week during kickabouts in Dublin's Fairview Park, Robbie is boss, combining the managerial skills of McRory, Steen and McNeill. Not surprisingly, his greatest hero was another little man.
I always looked at Jimmy Johnson, the way he could veer in and out and so quick, put opposition off on the wrong foot. I idolised him because I played number 7. Everybody, no matter where in your life, everybody wants the underdog to win. Whether it be the underdog in footballing or in a job position or the underdog in a Celtic and Rangers position. So they always want the underdog to win.
New club member.
At the supporters club meeting, the latest Celtic video has arrived. But before it can be screened, other matters must be addressed. McNeill's men have qualified for the Cup semi-final, and large numbers will travel to Glasgow. They're anxious to make the most of the visit.
I'd have to agree with Derek to get a tour of Parkhead because, as I say, when I was over in Glasgow for a Scotland-Ireland match, we actually tried to get into Parkhead, and it just wasn't possible, you know.
If somebody wants to go along to Parkhead and see it on Saturday morning, and if you remember on the Sunday night that we were with Billy, Billy said that he actually showed a crowd round from Andersonstown round Celtic Park on a Sunday morning. On Saturday morning,
of course it's Billy, our friend Billy, who's at the dinner, not Mr. McNeill or the boss.
I was actually concerned a visit by the Neath Padraig Celtic Supporters Club here in Dublin.
The source of rancour is the behaviour of the other crowd, the breakaway group of supporters down the road. Isn't it inevitable that within an organisation founded on such noble principles, there should be the occasional outbreak of self-righteousness?
Sponsorship for the dinner dance and spot prizes. People asked us, what kind of an outfit is that you're running there? That was an absolute disgrace.
Perfect ambassadors, the kind of a supporters club envisaged by Margaret Thatcher, alive and well and living in Dublin.
And the possibility will be expelled.
Now here's another kind of person that you wouldn't expect to find in the jungle at Celtic Park. Dr. Bernard Meehan, Chief Archivist at Trinity College Dublin, a keeper of manuscripts, an Edinburgh man, married to an Irish girl with one young son, and terribly homesick for Saturday afternoons.
I can't remember a time when I wasn't aware of Celtic and affected by the results. Going to the games became such a routine that when I came here in 1976, I really didn't know what to do with myself on a Saturday afternoon.
Away from the vulgar world, surrounded by art treasures, the archivist is distracted by his own sacred memories, the tense Saturday afternoons of boyhood spent fearing news of defeat, and the most glorious occasion, April 15th, 1970 at Hampden Park, Celtic, champions of Scotland, taking on Leeds United from south of the border, whom some believe to be the greatest British team ever. Days later, those memories are more vivid when he stands in Hampden alongside fellow pilgrims Robbie and Paul in Glasgow for the Cup semi-final against Hearts.
I was up there at number 23, up at the back, and 10 minutes to go, I could hear the crowd surging, Celtic, Celtic, and being small, I was up in beer can, but you didn't really need to see the action, you felt the emotion of it, you know, it welled up inside you, you know, you just couldn't get away from it throughout the whole of the ground, you know.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a Celtic thing, was it? It was a nationalistic kind of thing. It was very much a Scottish thing, because Leeds had been hyped up so much by the English press and media beforehand as the unbeatable team. Everybody had told us that they were the team that was going to win everything that season, and probably for about the first time, Celtic were being supported by the whole of Scotland. You know, because that was quite an unusual. It was quite an unusual experience. I mean, very much because they were playing the English champions.
Yeah, the nationalistic ideas coming into it, especially when you see the Rangers then full of Celtic fans and then shouting Celtic, Celtic.
That's right. Well, I mean, there's no way Celtic have 134,000 supporters.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the best game I've ever seen.
You remember the goals?
Strangely enough, the only goal I've got the clearest memory of is the Leeds goal. Probably because that had there was a kind of sinking feeling when I saw that going in. You know that all this hype might be right after all. Because where we were, we could see we had a direct line on all the goals down there. But there was a shot from Bremner, and you could see it snaking in. You saw it taking more than one bend as it went in. It was a completely unstoppable shot.
That made it one each, didn't it?
That's right.
One each.
The talk of bold deeds becomes too much for Robert. A lifetime ambition is about to be achieved. He takes off like his greatest hero, Jimmy Johnson, weaving a path down the right touchline towards the Celtic end.
Ground's bound to be out now any minute. He doesn't run as quick playing football.
On the morning of the Hearts match, Bernard Meehan rises early and walks alone to his first stop, the little hall at the back of St. Mary's Church, where brother Walfred Kearns founded Glasgow Celtic. Right from the start, they proved their Irishness.
There was a split in the club quite early on between those who favoured the limited liability company, which again in a business sense was a very shrewd and progressive move, and those who yearned for the more pure kind of organisation which dealt entirely with charity. There were various attempts to spawn rival clubs which were devoted to the more pure ideals, but these didn't work.
The church, built to last, is still in use. In the Civic Museum, an exhibition of Celtic memorabilia is on display. It's mounted by the city fathers to mark centenary year, acknowledging the huge contribution the club has made to the social history of this great city. For the archivist and Celtic supporter, this is fascinating stuff. It includes the big one, the European Cup, the actual trophy, won by Celtic on May the 25th, 1967, the first British team to win the trophy. The bringing home of the cup to the East End of Glasgow was as important as the victory itself. It's said that Celtic captains must be born leaders, One of them, the classy defender Danny McGrain, wrote in 1978, "There is an inherent attribute in every player with a true feeling for the club, fighting spirit. By tradition, when the chips are down, Celtic are always at their most dangerous." A man who understands the significance of the European Cup's return to Glasgow's East End is Brian Wilson, a Protestant from Ayrshire and Labour MP, who was drawn to Celtic because of their concern with the working classes.
They're very much the same kind of thing as trade union banners, aren't they?
Yeah, it must have been a real art form in itself around that time. The first of these break clubs was, appropriately enough, St Mary's, and the picture on it was of Tom Maley.
Does that survive?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But the break club spread quite rapidly, and they used to meet at Carlton Place in the centre of Glasgow, and they would then set off for wherever they were going with this procession of breaks with the banners and fully unfurled, and it must have been quite a sight. But the whole thing, as it grew, it also began to become the focal point for rowdyism and the various the Celtic break clubs would meet the Rangers break clubs and so on. And I think by the time, certainly the First World War, it had become more of an embarrassment than anything else.
There was a time in the 1890s, wasn't there, when they were at variance with the club. They disagreed with the club about signing policies and things like this.
Some things never change.
Like the man said, some things never change, including the predicament of the youngster left waiting outside the pub while Daddy, Celtic supporter and de facto a club historian, discusses important matters. Generations back, young Irishmen were hired as labourers in Michael Heraty's bar on Glasgow's south side. Now it's an established Celtic stop, suitably close to Hampden, and the semi-final clash with Hearts. The talk is of Parkhead politics, present and past.
For many years, there was this awareness among Celtic supporters vaguely that the destinies of the club lay with two old ladies in Ireland. And the extraordinary thing was that this was true, that the two of the founding families, the Grants and the Colgans, had intermarried, and all of these shares ended up with these two old ladies in Toombridge. And really, although they never exercised direct control, that the fact Bob Kelly had such power in the club was partly due to the fact that he had
the support of
these people. So everywhere along the line, the Irish connection is very strong.
I always think, of course, that the question of the tradition of Celtic isn't just a matter of the families that run it or the origins, you know, the charitable origins and the Irish political origins and the Irish connections. It's really a question of the style of play as well, and this is what I think continues to draw people to Celtic. The fact that they always have stuck with a style of bright, fast, attacking play.
It's astonishing if you go back within 2 or 3 years of the club being founded that there are references in the press to this style of play, and James Kelly was given a lot of the credit for his emphasis on attack, and it's something which has survived right down.
Yeah, the attacking centre half.
The attacking centre half, but always going forward in an exciting kind of play, and it is something which is, I don't think a Celtic team would know how to play defensively or to adopt some depressing formation, but it always has to be the emphasis on excitement and creativity.
Yeah, so James Kelly, of course, was the most prominent player of his day, and it was a great kind of act of faith by the club to get hold of Kelly, to wrest him away from Renton in 1888. It gave them a credibility which they might not have had otherwise, and it allowed them to, it's reckoned that Kelly persuaded half the Hibs team to follow, so that they had a ready-made team straight away.
Down the road, the Lions of Celtic arrived to maul the latest bunch of troublesome Christians, Heart of Midlothian. The bloodthirsty fans almost choke on their dentures when Hearts defender Whitten scores a shot goal from 40 yards. Packy Bonner, they protest, had been injured by the Hearts striker McPherson, a former Ranger, of course. Celtic fight back and steal 2 goals. The dream of the double is very much alive. Still pale with tension, 2 Pilgrims have one last score to settle. Near the Hampden Park exit, that's Jerry McNee, Celtic historian and soccer commentator, who had predicted no trophies for Celtic in their centenary year.
The bookmakers didn't fancy them, I didn't fancy them, I don't think their own supporters fancied them. You know.
I think McNeil made all the difference, Billy McNeil.
He's galvanised it well, you know, he's a good frontman for it all.
Jerry, they feel, has acknowledged the error of his ways. Gracious in victory, the pair and thousands more go to begin the serious analysis in the nearest pub. Glasgow is a city of drama, where some theatre groups survive by dealing with subjects close to its people. It's no surprise that the pursuit of populist issues considered in this particular year should include Glasgow Celtic. The work on stage at the Pavilion Theatre tells the story of an Irish family and their dynastic associations with the Celtic Club. In an appropriate setting, Brian and Bernard meet up with the producers of the play, Dave McLennan and Dave Anderson.
The political affiliations and interests of that group of people. I mean, Glass was very active in the home government branch of the Irish National League. And very close.
Through the years, the Celtic movement had strong political links with the Scottish trade union movement, the Labour Party and the Independent Labour Party. The associations go back to its patron, Michael Davitt, the Irish patriot.
I don't know what the equivalent would be today if you were starting with some
Davitt
sporting
coming
club.
along and saying Celtic, and the fans at the time, well, this is
1892.
1892,
yeah. They all laughed every time he
That's right.
every time he pronounced the thing as Celtic rather than Celtic. This was in his speech after opening the new ground.
Right. With the turf.
The sort of Donegal turf with shamrocks grown out of it.
It's a great story.
It's a brilliant story where he was talking there about how he hoped that sort of Donegal turf would be slippery to every Saxon foe that.
See, the name Celtic is very interesting, and this is where the whole Davitt role becomes important, because in the years before Celtic were founded, Davitt was stomping Scotland, and particularly the Highlands, talking about the community of interest that existed between Scotland and Ireland, the Land League in Ireland and the land movement in the Highlands of Scotland. And he was stressing this commonality of interest and using this word Celtic over and over again. And that was a way into the Protestant north of Ireland. If you could make common cause between the Catholic Land League in the south of Ireland and the Crofters of Scotland, then you begin to build bridges towards the Protestant north of Ireland. But it feeds into so many other things that Celtic took a very definite decision that there would be none of this sectarian nonsense in the earliest days, and they've remained true to that throughout.
Such highfalutin talk is all very well, but history is all about heroes. After the match, Robbie and Paul are meeting theirs. The little man who doesn't look so vulnerable out of his working clothes, Jimmy Johnson, and former captain, Danny McGrain. And who'd have thought that Bernard, the archivist, the Edinburgh Don, would cherish an ambition to hear the stories of a foxy, gutsy little working-class Protestant, Bertie Auld, who stoked the Celtic engine room in the 60s.
You know, and that gave us a marvellous kick. Did I ever tell you the story about the Catholic Church and the Orange Lodge and the sports quiz?
Tell us about it.
Well, the Catholic Church and the Orange Lodge had a sports quiz in a big hall, and it was really jam-packed full. You know, all the tickets was sold. And the quiz master says, right, both teams ready, sit down, fingers in the button. First question. Who was the first British club to win the European Cup? Catholic Church in right away. Celtic, 2 points. Second question. Who was the Scottish team that won 9 championships in the trot? Catholic Church in right away. Catholic Church, Celtic, 4 points. So the chairman of the Orange Lodge stood up, he says, excuse me, quizmaster, he says, I think these questions are favouring the opposition. So the quizmaster says, sit down, your time will come. Teams ready? Yes? Fingers in the button. Third question. Who scored the League Cup goal for Rangers? Orange Lodge in right away. What League Cup final? You won your mate 7-1.
It took Jim Barker longer than expected to get the autograph calendar and new supporters badge for his friend Duncan Doherty, but get them he did.
We are Celtics.
20 years since Duncan's exile began in Ireland. The recent death of his wife, Margaret, means that his life is all the more difficult now. He leaves the house most days to walk the town, stopping in shops and houses where there's a chance to talk about Celtic.
That's Duncan.
That's Johnny Thompson's death. That's Jimmy Bussey and Charlie Gittin. And Charlie Sam English.
Sam English. Your man, he was from Korea.
Sam English.
Sam English. You reckon he never played after that?
Played at Liverpool.
Did he? You should frame that.
Oh, I'll get it framed.
Well preserved.
The club is his life. It represents his memories. It represents his hopes. It represents the little man's dreams. Drama to the end. In the cup final, Kevin Gallagher scores a goal for Dundee United against Celtic. The villain is related to the legendary Patsy Gallagher, one of the greatest Celtic players of all. But such catastrophe in a beautiful piece of casting, Conservative Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher stooped to present the trophy. 100 years on, the Celtic dreams in good hands.